Hey guys, my name is Brian Harris. I'm with Dogwood Media, and we contract with the State Board of Missions to help with web and social media. And we got the question from churches who are just wanting to get started and get on the live stream. And so I brought in two of my friends that have done this before. I consider them experts. They may not consider themselves that, but I wanted them to come in and kind of share what they've done in their church. And so I have Josh Spivey, who is right here. And then I have Jason Davis. And Jason is a volunteer at the church, and Josh is the minister of music. And so at first, I'm going to get them to kind of explain what's the new normal for Thorington Road Baptist right now and what you guys are doing. So do one of y'all want to hop in there and kind of explain what you're doing right now?
Yeah, so, obviously with like most churches, this has hit us really hard. The reality is we're not seeing our church members. So what has been optional before is now a necessity for us. So, we're having to do what many other churches are doing, live stream to our congregation. We've, we're kind of ahead of times, that being that we were doing it before all this hit. So kind of at an advantage, but there have been some things that we've learned to do since all this has happened. Some things that we've realized that we need to do better at, and some things that we can add to what we've been doing.
Now, right now, you guys are streaming on multiple platforms, and kind of explain like your setup. Jason, Jason is the guy who's running it every week. So, Jason, do you mind kind of explaining what you have set up right now and all the platforms you're going to?
Yeah, so when we live stream on a Sunday morning, we actually just run it through Vimeo, and then we have Vimeo push it to Facebook. But because of everything going on now, we actually have we load everything into Facebook, into Vimeo, and into YouTube, and have a premiere so that everything just comes live at one point, and then the whole congregation can watch it as one. And then if they want to watch it later, they can watch it later.
Now, camera-wise, you're using a 3-camera setup, which is not – most churches that are just getting started are not going to use a 3-camera setup, but kind of explain your cameras and your switcher that you're using there.
Okay, so with our cameras, we have just three – they're semi-pro 4K cameras. They're Panasonics. We have one usually set up on either side of our tech booth and one in the middle of the tech booth to give us multiple angles. Our switches, we're using a Black Magic switch right now. Everything runs into that, and then we can put in from our Sanctuary Mac, so our words can show up on our stream. We throw in digital signage, so our announcements come in. But everything comes straight into that room, and then we can route any video that we want to anywhere else in the church. So we actually produce everything into that room, and we can put our service on the TVs that we have throughout the church, or even into an overflow room that we have set up.
And right now, I would say Thornton Road is probably because it's running about 250 on Sunday mornings, is pretty much ahead, I would say, of a lot of churches in their technology area because of what y'all were doing beforehand. But what you're doing, I feel like some smaller churches could probably learn from that. You mentioned the cameras. Y'all are doing a 3-camera. If you're a small church, you do 1 camera. Where would you want to put that 1 camera at? Just for that, I mean, just kind of starting from that basic there.
I would always just do a wide shot of the stage toward the middle of the sanctuary, your auditorium. That way you're getting the broadest view of what's going on stage, and you don't have to have anybody that can track it if you don't have the volunteer for it. So it just sits there. If you have somebody that can volunteer, then you can zoom in and move the camera back and forth between whoever's leading worship or who's ever praying, and then your pastor as it is.
Okay. And also, I mean, if you're starting, like, let's go back from that to the camera, you're not going to necessarily run a switcher if you're just starting this Sunday. If you're trying to get something out for this Sunday service, you have that 1 camera, you're putting it onto a file. What if we talked about audio beforehand a little bit, so let's kind of dip into that a little bit, because if you have multiple sources on the stage, maybe you have, I'm assuming most small churches would have a soundboard and some way of recording that. Josh, do you mind jumping in on like the audio part? I know you're one that's kind of remixing your audio right now. These churches may not be able to do that.
Yeah, so audio can be as simple or as complicated as you want it to be. And it is so underestimated when you talk about streaming. And it is so important. But it's something that nobody ever thinks about. and besides visually, it's the second most important thing. And so you can have as basic of a setup as grabbing the audio from the camera, if you can do that, and you can have something as complicated as grabbing a mix from the soundboard or post editing, and that's a whole nother field of view there.
So right now we're a small church. This Sunday we have a camcorder. We have the ability to record. He's given us directions on our shot versus, if we have someone to operate it versus not. We've gotten that recording. Let's say we do have a soundboard, and we were able to get an audio input into the camcorder. Worst case, we have a microphone on the front of the camcorder recording the house sound. Do we even try music, or do we just go for the message, or what do y'all think?
I think it depends on, it really depends on your church. It depends on your licensing. What your church licensing will allow you to do. A lot of them are a little bit relaxed right now, but it goes back to what can you legally do, but also what you hit it, Brian. What can your camera do? Cameras, I think in the early 2000s, a lot of them used to have simple little mic jacks, but they've gone away from them right now. So you have to have a pretty high-end camera to even have a mic jack on it. So I mean that's a complication. And then how do you get the mix to the camera if you do? But if your camera doesn't have a mic jack, you have to have a converter that would allow you to input audio. So yeah.
Some people could even be using their iPad or their iPhone, possibly even as their camera, which that brings another complexity into it. And I do want to go back and kind of touch on one thing you talked about with the licensing. You mentioned that sometimes the licensings are being relaxed right now. I don't know if that's an across the board suggestion by any means that we'd want to make. I would suggest go ahead and paying for the licenses. And do you have any information on that, where the direction someone needs to go there?
Yeah, so I mean, we use CCLI. Song Select, for most music guys would recognize it as Song Select, but CCLI licensing, there are several licensing levels that you can get, and one of them is online streaming.
Okay, so
it would go to tell that your stream can still get pulled even if you have the license. If you're using any type of music, Facebook, YouTube, they don't recognize that you have a license even if you've paid for it. There's no way to input that, so your stream could get pulled on that. And I'll go ahead and mention this while I'm talking. If you're using ambient sound, which is the sound that's coming from your iPad, your camcorder, anything like that, you want to be cautious of where you're putting that camera, because it's happened in a couple of churches where stuff that shouldn't be heard has been heard on live stream. That is either talking about other church members, it's talking about stuff that's going on in the community. So you want to be cautious of where you're putting this so that that type of stuff doesn't go out, just because you don't have any control of what people are talking about, and you don't know when somebody's going to be talking about that type of stuff.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got a camera, we've talked about our sound, but now we've got our licensing. So let's assume that we've chosen to do a wide shot and do some movement. We've recorded it. Now we've got to get it onto our computer, because at this point we're assuming we're not going to be doing it live on Facebook or anything like that, because we're trying to just make sure we get all this done ahead of time. So I want to take that assumption out of it. So we've got the file. What do we do at this point? What's our next step y'all would suggest?
Jason?
Well, Josh usually does all the post edit for us, but
simplify it. So I mean, we're looking at just chopping the front and the end off of it, and we're not even looking at graphics or anything like that. So
most of the time you can run into, if you're running a Windows machine, if you're running iMac or a Macintosh machine, there are entry level editing software systems. I think Windows is still using Movie Maker or something equivalent, and the Macs are using what they call iMovie. So you just pull your SD card out, connect it to your computer, drop it over there, and then you'll be able to go in and cut and paste whatever you want to do. If you decide that you don't want to have the worship service in there, you can cut that worship service out and put just the sermon in there.
Yeah, and there are multiple softwares to be able to do this, but the post edit is about mainly trimming out stuff that you don't want.
We're not talking about trying to over edit or anything like that. We're just looking at getting it to the point where the service starts and where it ends, and kind of giving a clean transition on either end. We're not trying to overcomplicate this especially for a new church, and this is their first time. And most editing softwares, I know this from experience, if you do a Google search, you pretty much can find how to trim, and it should be pretty self-explanatory. I know most will have an icon that looks like a pair of scissors, and so they try to make it as easy as possible for someone to find the start point, the end point, then using the scissors to trim off the excess film, and then exporting it out. I normally tell people to go as an MP4, especially on an Apple machine. I'm not sure what the video file would be on a Windows machine anymore. Can y'all think about that one? I'm not sure what. Like
WMV.
Just do MOV on those. Is what you said?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
It should be a standard one that should stay for web ready type processes if you're on a Windows machine. The smallest file type is normally it, but the one that doesn't sacrifice quality at the same time. So like I know particularly what we look for is the words HD or something that says 1920 by 1080 or 720p or something like that. We want to find something in that quality range that you can export it out of whatever program you use. And then Jason, you kind of mentioned several of the platforms that Thorington Road is using right now with Facebook and Vimeo and YouTube, and y'all are streaming straight from Vimeo to Facebook, which is a paid option if I remember correctly. I want to say it's less than $100 a month for that, but a lot of churches I know are probably looking for a free option, which YouTube would be that. It's pretty simple to upload them. Josh, are you the one uploading those every week right now, or?
I am. Yep.
So any suggestions on that?
We create a redundancy here because especially with the first week we were heavily streaming. I knew that it would probably be an issue with Facebook or some platform going down, and that's exactly what happened. Brian, I think you called it too.
Yeah.
So we've developed a redundancy where we use Facebook, YouTube, and Vimeo. And so if one fails, the church members can hop on another site. Like I said, Facebook just totally failed us the first week. And so we directed most of our members to YouTube. But yeah, as far as replacing videos, Vimeo is our main video, I guess, hub that we typically use. The beauty of that is we can live stream to it, but then later on I can give it a post edit, and remove all the live the live video and go to a post edited replacement, and it won't change any links for everybody. You can't do that with Facebook or YouTube.
I know that first week, I was telling everyone personally, I was like, hey, go use Facebook Premiere. Don't worry about doing live. You need to have some time to get your editing done ahead of time and then do the Premiere. Then we learned that Facebook was streaming basically from the same server as if it was live, was basically we were losing all the benefit of doing that. And so what you mentioned before about having the redundancies by finding other platforms, if you do use Facebook, going ahead and putting your video there, but also putting it on YouTube or Vimeo or some other option at the same time. Because I know my family on this past Sunday morning, we watched the service on Vimeo. And because Josh put the video up early and we chose to make our own early service, and we had our service ahead of time before everyone else was watching the premiere on YouTube or Facebook, which is a very cool function, is that you can put it out there on Facebook or YouTube and use a premiere basically to set a time that when this video is going to come available. That function is not available on Vimeo though, is it?
Yeah, that's what I was fixing to say. Why it can be, I don't know. I wish it was, but we cannot do that. So Vimeo's strictly going to be on demand or actually live streaming.
I know another church used Facebook, and I've actually seen a couple churches do this now. Instead of using the premiere function or even the live, they're just uploading the video and putting it out there at 8:00 on Sunday morning, and just letting people watch it when they can. And they've even encouraged people to use the watch party function that's part of Facebook, where if you go watch a video in the bottom right hand corner, it'll say start a watch party and invite your friends, and they'll invite people to come join them in watching the live video there and be able to converse within that too. So there's all kinds of different methods. Facebook, especially if a church already has a Facebook page, is a logical choice, just because the notifications are going to go out to the people already subscribed to that. That's what I've always tell people: use those free ones. YouTube is free. Vimeo is going to be the paid option, but it's also going to be the higher quality video option. And you're not going to deal with the ads. that you're going to see on YouTube or possibly even Facebook, even though I haven't seen.
And that's why we still consider Vimeo our primary, port of exporting videos. It's the cleanest. It's no ads. So that's why it's still considered my favorite.
I haven't seen any ads on Facebook yet, but I mean, we're always going to be the product on Facebook, whatever you're producing, because we're not paying a fee for it. And so eventually they are going to monetize it. So for that reason alone, I agree with you. Vimeo is probably one of the most worthwhile expenses in this whole thing, to be able to have a high quality video and have it out there too.
And it goes to note too, when you pay for Vimeo, there's a live stream service through them, like a software called Livestream Studio. It's a really good software. We started using it here in the past, I think, 3 months. OBS is a free software, which is what we started using. But that Livestream Studio lets us do a little bit more and goes ahead and pushes everything out for us, so we don't have to put any codes in or anything like that. It's just straight there. So that's another benefit for having Vimeo.
Okay. Well, I feel like we've kind of touched in all the basics that a church would need to start a live stream for this Sunday. We've, from the who to put them on, I mean, on the platform, you're looking at using your basic musicians, but depending on your sound abilities, your input into your camera, the camera choice is going to depend on what you have available. In worst case scenario, I feel like you're going to find someone that has a nice iPhone in your congregation that can help video it. At the worst case scenario, most likely you may already have a camcorder or someone else has one that they could use to do that. If you have multiple camcorders and you have to look into a switcher option, which right now might be a little difficult for starting this Sunday, but there's very, I think you and I, the three of us were having a text conversation about a new one that Blackmagic just put out that would be a great solution for a lot of churches.
Inexpensive.
Yeah.
I think it was less than $300, wasn't it?
I think it's $500 maybe. But
$500 is the one that has live streaming, I think, built into it.
Right.
And the one that doesn't have live streaming built in that was close to $300.
Because here's the big thing too, you're going to need a way to get it into your computer, and so some devices are going to be better for that than others. So you got to get it to your computer somehow.
That low cost Blackmagic switcher was, I think it's all HDMI, and most cameras will have an HDMI output off the back of it. Most of your computers have HDMI, so if you're trying to get into a little bit higher level, I think there's even audio inputs on that one. That's the $599 version.
There is.
There is.
You can take an audio feed off your soundboard and have a 4-input switcher between 3 cameras and a computer and have a really top-notch looking presentation for a very low cost amount, and then taking advantage of your free options on getting it out with the Facebook and YouTube, and then for the higher quality using Vimeo. So I feel like we've hit.
To me, if I had nothing, that's what I would do.
Is use a camcorder, go for the $599 Blackmagic switcher. Yep. You basically can get a live streaming. I don't know how much does a camcorder cost. A good camcorder like that you would put in a church right now.
Well,
a tripod.
That's Jason.
Well, we the ones we're using now, I think we spent like $700 on.
Yeah.
Even before then, though, the Panasonics that we were using were just little handy cams.
We bought at Costco.
Yeah, I think $200
on sale.
So, and we were still getting great pictures. They were 4K. So, if you, and it should be noted, Facebook doesn't do 4K. The highest they've streamed right now is, I think, 1080p. So you don't need a 4K camera to do any of this. And Blackmagic, their stuff doesn't support 4K on the lower end. I think once it gets to higher end stuff, you spend some money, it will support the 4K. But go out, get you a $200 camera from Walmart, from Target, Costco. You can even get a DSLR now and have a really nice lens on it and get you a really good stream from that. Canon, all that.
A lot of people have DSLRs.
Yeah, Blackmagic. We've talked a lot about Blackmagic. They are really the best when it comes to price range and quality. Their cameras, if you look them up, they're usually compared to the Red cameras. Red cameras are what Peter Jackson used for the Hobbit movies. I mean, they are $20,000 cameras just for the body, not including lenses and stuff like that. So you're getting the same quality off these Blackmagics as you are on these Reds. So I think the lowest end one is $1,000. So it's really not a bad price for a body when you're looking at stuff.
Realistically, a church starting a live stream could probably or if they want to make an investment in a nice switcher, they could get one for $600, a Blackmagic switcher. They could buy 3 cameras, 3 camcorders for as low as $200 to $300 a piece, and then you got some wiring and stuff like that you'd have to put in between your, assuming you already have a soundboard, getting the sound out of that, and then that particular one records to your computer. If I remember correctly, I believe it hooks up to the computer, and you can export your video out of it. Worst case scenario, there are some recording devices that Blackmagic sells that are, I think, want to start off around the $500 range too. So you can have a full setup. Assuming maybe you already have a TV around, that's a HD TV that you can use as a monitor, switcher, recording, 2 cameras, under $2,000 would get you into.
Yeah.
You would look professional, super professional.
Yeah, so we've kind of have pride ourselves here at our church based upon doing things for very low cost. And I've read several articles about, the basic setup, 10 grand. And I laugh at it because that's insane.
That's not realistic for most churches.
No, it's not. It's not realistic as far as what I could do for $2,000, and it's not realistic based upon what most churches can do, if they don't have anything right now.
And all these things are very volunteer friendly. I mean, Jason, did you have any training before you came into the church and doing video editing and stuff, or doing like directing or any of this wiring and running all these things, or was this kind of you learned most of it at Thorington Road?
It was a lot of it was a hobby. The live stream side stuff was very much new to me. Josh has been great for being patient with me and learning stuff. But, in this time, what we're working with now, Josh has been really great at just letting me kind of go with it and directing the way that I think something should look and get my input on stuff and just let me go. So if you're starting a live stream, just find somebody that has the passion for video, for editing and stuff like that has an eye for it, and just let them have fun. Trust them in what they're doing, because you could have the next, really big, nice stream, or you could end up, just having a basic stream that can get out there. But it really helps your ministry, and it helps somebody else in another place to kind of get into a spot where they feel needed and they feel wanted, that they can use their talents for the Lord.
Cool. I think we'll end on that. I think we were able to, hopefully, church will be able to watch this and kind of be able to have the tools to get them started for a small church. And then as they grow, hopefully they can even look at the different ways they could use those tools we gave them just today, just to grow the ministry and how easy it can be done. And hopefully, and not an inexpensive thing, because we want to be good stewards of the money we've been given. I think Thorington Road is a great example of that, being able to take a little bit and make a lot of it. And they're seeing a lot of people every week watching those videos right now that they're doing, and they're putting a lot of thought into each one that they're doing. And I think that's one thing we never really touched on, is the planning part of it, and making sure that you're planning out the service ahead of time and not just going in, because the live stream service is a little bit different than a live service, because you're pre-recording it and you're able to kind of go in and think ahead of all the different elements. I guess I was almost done, but I made me think of it.
You're hitting a good point.
Suggestion to go back in and think about how your service should be different for live stream.
So let me give you an example of the benefit of pre-recording. So we recorded Michael, our pastor, on Thursday. And this was before, I believe, the governor's address, where she tightened everything down. Well, Michael, during his announcement time, had already mentioned 2 announcements that were not valid anymore past that order. I was easily able to edit it out, and we didn't have to come back up here to reshoot. Now, in the live setting, I guess you could argue that he would have, canceled those out himself. But yeah, there are things that you might not even see in the live setting that you want not in the live stream.
Well, I've noticed you've even changed your stage setup, just because right now you don't have a choir, so you took all the choir chairs out and used the opportunity to use that space behind you.
Yeah, we replaced them with panels, the choir with panels, but
low cost panels.
Very low cost, yes. Some of these panels are some Brian, what do you call this material? The A-frame material.
The chloroplast.
Yeah, those are simply chloroplast signs with gaffer's tape. But we knew that we needed to do some things to change it up every week. And so more of a set design mentality was my means of trying to change things up.
And that's not a normal thing at Thorington Road. You're not normally doing a set design. Normally your choir's back there, your stage is pretty much just basically the same thing every week. And so you looked at this as like, hey, we need to do something different for online, because now
and we might can learn some things, moving ahead from this. It's definitely given me some more ideas of, hey, what can we do to change things up when everybody does come back? I'm not saying I'm going to remove the choir, but
be careful. Right. Be careful.
Yeah. But there are some things from a design perspective that we could do to kind of spruce our sanctuary up.
I even noticed that you used a monitor for like when Michael's preaching, that he has his points there instead of having to go back and forth. You're able just to have the points on the monitor there and even like the lyrics during the worship time. Y'all started doing a lower third with that, which y'all don't normally do that when it's a normal live stream, because you're wanting people to come. Whereas not now, there's not even a choice to come. So you're having to adapt basically to meet the need.
Well, we used to do lower thirds on live stream, but we've had some complications with software.
We were limited by technology at the moment, but we're just looking at it a different way. I'm doing all the lyrics post edit in the video software as opposed to trying to do them lower thirds live.
And it goes to say too, is if you're doing anything post edit with words, make sure you spell check.
Very much.
There's a story.
The pastor comes after you.
I feel like there's a story there for sure.
Yeah.
Josh misspelled some stuff in the first week, I think Michael said, or something.
Everyone sees it now too. It's not like the live stream where you had maybe it's average 10 people a week, and now you're seeing.
Now it matters. I mean, it's not that it didn't matter before, but it really matters now.
Everyone can hit pause and do screenshots now and send it back to you so they can. Really, just shows your errors over and over again.
And an awkward expression is inevitable if you pause it in the right place.
Yes. Something you just said though, I want to touch on a little bit with numbers, with watching. Obviously we're in different times right now. Our live stream usually it was about 10 people max. I think 5 to 10 people. When everything goes back to normal, don't get discouraged by the low numbers. Those people are the shut-ins. Those people are the people who are on vacation, stuff like that want to reach out. We have one lady who watches every Sunday. She makes sure she tells us that she's here. She tells us hi. When she met Josh was like the celebrity because of seeing him on.
She's
on
only
Facebook.
seen me on screen.
Yeah. So I mean, those 5 people that are watching. Your service is important to them. You're reaching them. They feel part of the church still. So right now you might be getting 30 to 50, 100, who knows how many views during your streams, during your videos. But when it goes back to normal, don't look at those numbers again. Those numbers are not important. You're still getting out there. You're doing what God needs you to do and giving that word to the person who needs to hear it.
Yeah. And I know we need to close up, but let me say this, the power of live streaming video. I guess in our church, I don't know the lady. A lot of our church members do know her. She was apparently involved when our church was Woodley back in the day. And she just gotten out of church. And we actually showed a testimony a few weeks ago. And it just hit her really hard. Like she literally stopped dead in her tracks, and it touched her like I think life changing. And had we have not have had this ministry, we would not have gotten that to her. And so hopefully we're changing lives by this. I pray we are. And so it's getting our message out.
Well, this coronavirus is going to make everyone look at different things they might not have considered before, and maybe that ends up being maybe it's not something they necessarily wanted to do, but now because you have to do this, it ends up reaching other people that you may never have been able to reach before. So, God could definitely use this even during this time to help connect people, because there's a lot of people that they're really lonely right now, and this serves as a way for them to be able to connect. And if your church is not doing this, or if your church is not having anything right now, or maybe even the rule changes that just came out where maybe you met because you're underneath the numbers, but now you can't do that. This is a really simple way to be able to connect with members. And and be able to use the tools you have, or to be able to spend small amounts of money to be able to improve it and do even better things and bigger things. And I mean, Thorington Road didn't start with 3 cameras on day one. It started small, and it grew from there. It grew fast, I will say, because there was a need, and because volunteers were able to buy in, and it was a way for people to do it. And so basically, I hope all these tools we'll be able to help some small churches. I want to thank Josh and Jason for jumping on here today, and hopefully providing some good insights that everyone will enjoy and be able to see and use. So if you have any questions, we'd love to help you. Alsbom, alsbom.org is the website. You want to go there and be able to look at the coronavirus page. The link is on the homepage right now. You'll find all kinds of resources there. There's a listing of all the state missionaries. You can click on that and have all their contact information to be able to contact them, get any kind of resources from them that they can help you with. They want to help you. That's what the state missionaries are there for. That's the money that you give to the cooperative program. That's what it goes to fund, is these things like right now, what we're doing, our cooperative program funded. And so we want to be a resource for you. So thanks for tuning in today. Thanks, guys, for joining me.
Thank you, Brian.